Hi everyone, and welcome to this series of Book Direct Show talks focusing on professional short-term rental property managers and how they are changing their direct booking strategies for 2020. I'm really delighted to be joined by three very experienced gentlemen in our industry. We've got Pierre Hubitz, the Head of Sales and Business Development at Veeve, Naim Anis Peyman, Director of Payments, Service Accommodation and Veeve, and Steve Taggart, Managing Director at Brighton Getaways. Thank you all, guys, for joining me today. Real pleasure to have you all.
Welcome.
First of all, if you have a moment, it'd be great if you could just briefly introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about you and your companies. So, Steve, I'll let you introduce yourself first, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, I'm Steve Taggart. I own a business called Brighton Getaways. The detail is in the title. We operate in Brighton, about 40 properties now, grown organically. But we've also spent some time building our own property management system, which operates our business nicely for us and saves us some money each year. You know, the future for us is going to be expanding in other areas, and the lockdown, I think, has brought as many opportunities as problems. We are expecting to come out of the other side of this and grow quite quickly as well.
That's great. That's really optimistic. Pierre, if I can have some words with you, bit of an introduction.
Sure, yeah. So Pierre Hubitz, I'm Head of Sales and Business Development for Veeve. We manage private homes on behalf of homeowners. We started about 9 years ago now in London, and we've opened an office in Paris in 2016. So as of today, we manage about 1,700 homes. So these are privately owned homes, so they are mainly primary residents, and our business is on two sides. On the homeowner side is helping them to generate some revenue while they go away, and we do the whole property management, obviously welcoming the guest and dealing with everything, giving the homeowner peace of mind. And for the guest is the opportunity to have a home away from home and experience the city when they come to London or Paris.
That's great. And Naim, over to you.
So my name is Naim Peyman. I started a property management company back when I was at university 5 years ago. So in the meanwhile, that's grown. We're managing around 260 units now, and more in the pipeline across a dozen cities in the UK. And as I was growing the business, similar to Steve, I realized that tech was needed. So started developing my own software, and then last year decided to make it available to a few people in a beta round, and we just launched in March with Veeve.
Excellent, great. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask you just off the bat some of the ways that your company were successful in generating direct bookings prior to this crisis that we now find ourselves in. So, Naim, as we were talking to you, any observations on that and what's worked for you in the past?
So up to last year, we didn't really do much for sales and marketing for direct bookings. I mean, we had a website, of course, and we put some leaflets offering promotions to people that were staying with us to try and get repeat bookers. But to be honest, the main direct bookings that were large bookings that I managed to get was grabbing people off OTAs or getting them, you know, when they booked for a week and actually they wanted to stay for months, dealing with that extension directly. So in that way, we were able to get direct bookings, sometimes worth, you know, the tens of thousands. Something else that worked in Cambridge, for example, which is where I started off, was advertising through the university accommodation website, where you had visiting academics staying for a few months at a time, and those also gave us some quite juicy direct bookings.
That's great. Pierre?
I think for us, the main way we've tried to really attract people and book directly on our website is by really trying to create an environment on the website that is inspiring people to travel. And I think, you know, we see a lot of people having websites that are very much transactional. And it's only about sort of, you know, selecting, going to check out and pay. We want to make sure that people feel inspired to travel and stay with us. And we have developed a lot of content on our website around neighborhoods, guides, local shops that they can go to, and really trying to make sure that they feel like they are excited to come and stay with us. And we're obviously trying to communicate that passion about our cities on social media as well, which I think has been very helpful to attract consumers directly on our website.
I love that. as an SEO, that's right up right in my area. Getting people to engage with them on your website, I love it. Steve, your thoughts?
I'm probably a little bit less subtle than that, a little bit more direct in my approach. We're lucky enough to live in Brighton and Hove, and obviously we attract big groups at weekends here. So we have several elements to our business. Contractors, sort of Monday to Friday. And we also, and then at the weekends, we'll be a lot of our larger properties will be a group accommodation properties, so stag and hen groups, which pay real premium, and that is done via agencies that are away from the OTAs. Stag and hen groups have kind of their own micro market, if you like, with companies like Chili Sauce, who do their own. They attract and put package together, almost like a package holiday for them. So they might do, they might go to a nightclub or a bar, and they'll also stay and they'll book accommodation with us. So I guess that would be considered direct booking because we set the rates and there's no commission involved. We also do exactly as Naeem was saying. We obviously we actively look for bookings coming in that have the signature of contractors. So if we know someone's booking Monday to Friday, there's a very good chance that that's what they're doing here. So we'll actively contact them the day after check-in, make sure they're settling in okay, asking their requirements, what they're doing in town, and by that, we generally, will hold that business throughout the lifetime of them staying in the city. One example last year was exactly that, from one phone call that we made, and generated over 100,000 quid worth of bookings just by one company. At one stage, I had 5 of our properties going Monday to Friday because their subcontractors came along and they used us to, and that came through one of the OTAs through Booking.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. The value contractors, they can be the real dream market, and I think they perhaps have a bit of a bad rep as well in Andrew Street. People just think of people, builders with mucky boots coming in and making a mess. But my experience, and having worked with you as well, Steve, is that they really can be just the perfect guests. Gone all day, happy to share rooms and everything. And
they basically come in from work at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening. They have a pie and a beer, and they're in bed by 8 and out of the house again at 7 in the morning. So they are the dream guests from my point of view. The rates are lower, but the midweek stuff pays the bills. I mean, and then we take the cream at the weekends. So.
Right. During this time, it's a very tricky time for us all. How have you been communicating? I'll stick with you, Steve, on this. How have you been communicating with previous guests? What's been your message? How are you trying to keep them with you? Not necessarily to book right now, but for the future.
Two ways actually. I mean, it's all about the marketing we do. Thankfully, every time a guest comes through to us, even from an OTA, we take ownership of that guest and ask them for the direct email address before we send them a booking confirmation. So, thankfully, when we want to remarket to them or talk about a product, we've already got the direct contact. During this period, I've done a couple of things actually. We've done lockdown. Cash flow is king at the moment, right? I mean, everybody is trying to hold on as much cash as they can by issuing credit notes to guests to use a year down the road, but trying to keep that cash in your bank to keep yourself afloat, and we've done that pretty successfully. In about 90% of cases now, we've not had to refund. It's only 10% of cancellations that requested a cancellation we've actually refunded. But what we've been offering new guests, and of course our old guests, is lockdown-proof risk-free bookings, meaning that they can book with us during the lockdown, and if they are still in lockdown, when the dates they book comes around, we'll refund them, no questions asked. And that's generated some reasonable cash for us. Probably, probably in the region of sort of 80 or 100,000 pounds worth of bookings that's generated for us in the future, just because of that guarantee. And we know it's coming through from their guarantee because they're quoting it to us as they're booking to make sure that their money is secure. But obviously, that's really helps us ensure that our cash flow is still very positive. We've also used, we've also invested heavily in some additional cleaning products, ozone generators, that kind of thing that kills all virus and bacteria. And the professional end of these machines, they're sort of 4,000 or 5,000 quid. So we've invested in a couple of those. We're doing cleaning properties periodically, and we're shouting about it. We're telling our guests that that's what we're doing. So they have confidence to come and stay with us knowing that we put some procedures in place post-lockdown that should keep them safe.
Yeah, I think that confidence is really important for anyone to come back.
Yeah.
Naim, can I have your thoughts on that and how you've been liaising with previous clients?
Yeah, so I think our messaging has been mostly, we're still here, we're not going anywhere, and we're looking forward to welcoming you back once it's all over. Similar to Steve, we've also been, we work with some in-house cleaners, but also with outsourced cleaning companies, and we've been liaising with them to ensure that what they're doing is keeping our current guests safe and also trying to communicate that over social media and directly to the guests when we speak to them. Most of our guests at the moment, the vast majority are direct, so we're also in close touch with them to see what their needs are. A lot of people have ended up extending throughout the lockdown, either because they haven't been able to go anywhere else or because they've just decided to stay put and not risk getting infected or anything like that. Yeah.
That's great. Pierre, I imagine your company are pretty hot on hygiene and cleanliness as well. So yeah, how have you been liaising with your previous guests?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's quite a few key elements that Steve and I sort of presented, but I think that the key for us was really to communicate and to tell them, look, it's obviously unprecedented times for everyone. And sometimes a little reminder as to what we do. And, you were talking about, hygiene and cleaning. This obviously has always been on the forefront of our mind. We are advertising some of our properties and working with Marriott, and obviously, standards, hotel standards are a must for vacation rentals, and making sure that we are keeping the standards high. But sometimes just reminding people of what we're doing, because people get nervous, reasonably so, because of the situations. So we're trying to remind them of what we do, how we do things. And obviously the main three elements for us is the safety of our guests, of our employees, and of our homeowners as well. So we've tried to really communicate around those 3 points, and as well, explaining that we understand the times are very trying, and that if you want to come to London or Paris, we understand that there might be circumstances that prevent you to do so. And as Steve mentioned, saying if a guest wants to come and book with us and somehow they cannot come because of the lockdown, we would obviously refund them, no questions asked. And I think that was giving that peace of mind for those guests, because despite being in lockdown, people still want to travel. They can't, but they want to, and it's how we can try to help them sort of getting to do that with the peace of mind. And if anything goes wrong, we'll be there for them.
Yeah, I can very much resonate with that. And you two will be the first guys I'm booking with when I come back. I'm in lockdown in Spain at the moment. I pretty urgently need to come back to the UK for at least a week or two to do business, but I can't be going into quarantine for 14 days. So I'll be in touch. Pierre, while I have you, revenue management and pricing. I mean, this is a tricky one at the moment, because we're all in. There's a real pressure on us to reduce our pricing and to try and get any bookings in that we can. Is this something that Veeve have gone down, or are you kind of keeping your pricing as was, with the knowledge of the offering that you have and the quality of it?
It is a very tricky question. I think it's very interesting to look at what people say, and you have some people that say, there's going to be so many people that will want to travel that the prices are going to skyrocket. And some people say there's going to be so much choice that you're going to have to put your prices all the way down. So it's very difficult to find a middle ground there. The first thing we've done is we've obviously been in touch with our homeowners, because they obviously are relying, some of them, on that revenue when they go away, and we sort of communicated with them and being very upfront. Obviously they would know what's happening and the situation, but being very honest and say, look, the demand is down, and I think it's very important for you to remember. And some of them have actually proactively said, hey, how about if we were just looking at reducing the prices? So we've been communicating with our host on that. I think obviously, at the moment, apart from key workers, we wouldn't have any guests coming. But for the summer, we know that this is going to be a little bit more difficult, because international travelers, for those who rely on them partly, will not be coming, at least from the US. So I think the period around the summer has been probably a little bit softer in terms of pricing. But I think when you come towards the period around Christmas and sort of November time, I think we're trying to keep strong on the rates because we know that the demand should be coming back.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find sort of a middle ground where the next few months probably will be a bit softer in terms of pricing, and is as well how flexible we make the cancellation policy and allowing our guests that book directly to be able again to have that peace of mind if something goes wrong. Thing goes hand in hand.
And is that something you offer, for example, on your website where it wouldn't be on offer on an OTA?
So we have done it on our website first. We do it for some other platforms, but I think for us what matters most is to make sure that anyone that books directly with us has the best conditions possible. So I think that sounds logical, but I know not everyone does that. So just trying to make sure that people that book directly with us would have the best conditions booking, and that's for us is a package. You sort of talked and touched on a little bit earlier about the value of what we offer. I mentioned previously that it was about the content and inspiring and helping and sort of having that relationship with the guests. So those are things we do directly on our website that I think would be different than from OTAs.
That's great. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously during the lockdown, it's been tough. The first week, I'm sure like everybody else, it was terrifying. Not only unprecedented territory, this hasn't happened in any of our lifetimes or our parents' lifetimes. So, we all were taken a bit by surprise at how quickly this virus spread through the world. But very quickly, I decided to flip all my properties to 30-day rolling rentals. So that's what I did. Every single property went on 30-day rolling contracts to key workers or NHS staff. I managed to get our business listed with the Crown. The Crown is effectively to provide services for key workers in NHS staff, but the Crown Commercial Services is called. That's what I was thinking of. So I managed to get us listed with them very early on. So we had quite a big uptake of the offers. Obviously, the rates were a third probably of what they would have been, but because a lot of our properties are, at least half of our estates are rent-to-rent model, we had to cover those costs. Those costs were frightening. They were frightening with very little income coming in. So by doing what we did, that's exactly what it did. It paid the cost for the properties that we were carrying, and it meant that we didn't have a huge outgoing, along with the furlough scheme, a huge outgoing of costs. But I mean, going forward, I mean, we're coming out of this, we're completely focused on the domestic market. There is going to be no international movement of any significant amounts for the next 3, 4, 5 months. We probably are. I think Pierre's probably right. We're probably looking October, November, December before we get anywhere near what we used to have from an international market. So it has to be about focusing on the domestic market, and we're absolutely geared up for that. Rates-wise, as we come out of the lockdown, I expect, because of our location by the seaside, half of London have been cooped up in their small flats with no outside space. They're going to be desperate to get out of the city, and the number one destination for Londoners already is Brighton. So I expect that our rates are going to be very keenly and highly priced, and we're going to be pricing them a premium coming out of into July and August, and expecting to see a really big staycation boom. I don't know how long that's going to last for. People are going to be worried about their finances, but when that sun is shining through July and August, I fully expect to be seeing them on the seaside and on the beach.
Having lived in Brighton for 11 years, Steve, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it's going to be heaving again sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Niall, I think you've kind of also shifted towards midterm bookings as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, similar to Steve, we're doing a lot of rent-to-rents, or leasing. Actually, we work mostly with blocks of apartments, guest houses, and hotels. And early March, I saw it coming because our occupancy was dropping, 10% by the week overall. And I guess perhaps I was lucky that I'm in Austria at the moment, and Austria locked down around 10 days ahead of the UK, and there was pretty much nothing in Austria in terms of cases, but the government acted really, really fast. So at that point, I just extrapolated and said the UK will be down the line, and I could see the bookings were dropping like crazy. So I called up every single landlord basically that we work with, and I said, look, April 1st, you can have your keys back if you want, or we switch to a management agreement until this is over, because I don't have the strength of covenant to be covering, 200, 250K in outgoings every month without having any revenue coming in. Yeah, we were very lucky that pretty much all of them switched to management. A couple of them went to very reduced fixed rates. And in those, we already had mid-stay sort of contractors that had been there for months and were planning to stay another 2 months or so. So we said, okay, we will keep going on fixed rents with the discounts, and we will review it monthly, which is what we've done, where we've been able to. We've taken the rents back up a bit, but we're still on reduced rates in some of those and on management on the bulk of our portfolio. So what that's done is, especially on the management side, it's allowed us to price very keenly. We're not quite at a third, but I'd say we're at around half of our usual pricing. We have also, so since January a year ago, I started building up a sales and marketing team to try and get more direct bookings. So luckily that was already in progress, and we had a team of around 10 people, 5 in sales and marketing, that have been trying actively to get direct bookings in. So we already had some of the expertise in, but I would say that we've really taken another boost through the lockdown in terms of cross-departmental collaboration with operations and revenue managers and business development. We've actually grown throughout the coronavirus period. We've taken on a number of other blocks, and we're still in discussion with more landlords who are interested in the service because they've got properties that are sitting empty. I mean, on the pricing side, some of the things is that, all historical data that we had is just thrown out of the window. You can't make use of it anymore because the market's completely different. Yeah. The pricing has been heavily occupancy based. So we've taken the risk reduction approach, where we've let go the first few units at cheap rates and longer stays. And then we've kept back a few in the hope that the market will open over the summer and we'll be able to do some peak pricing. The problem is we don't know, as Steve says, okay, they're very lucky they're by the beach. We don't really have beachside destinations. Okay, we've got stuff like Stratford upon Avon, which is touristy. But Cambridge, it's mostly, Asian visitors who are interested and come and spend that money in the summer. I'm not sure. We're trying to see, of course, everyone is saying there will be a staycation boom from national travel. I don't know how many people are keen to come and stay in Cambridge and in Oxford. We're lucky that we've got some contractor areas like Hartford and Hinkley where we've seen continued demand throughout the lockdown. Some places like Coventry, all we've had is Monday to Friday bookings. But that's partly because the owner didn't want weekend stays. So also you didn't really have much demand for weekend stays. So it's just been a real mix and match across the various cities in terms of what we've been getting. Obviously, what we've had to do is take the prices right down to operating costs, just to try and make sure that we get some money and that the owners can get some sort of rent coming through to contribute towards their mortgage, even if it doesn't cover it for them. And I think something else that was very important was that we switched to flexible cancellation policies, although that before that we were completely strict. And we've taken a drive down to cancellation a day before arrival, because obviously, while we were trying to keep on to as much of the funds that we had made before the lockdown, post-lockdown, if I were in people's shoes, I wouldn't be booking in advance. Plus, the whole market was available. Why would anyone want to commit when they knew that last minute they could get anything they wanted at cheap rates? Yeah, we're very lucky that we also have a full-time revenue manager. So he's very keenly keeping an eye on things on a daily basis. He looks at various markets at least once a week. He's looked at every city that we're working on. We have not yet put our prices up for the summer because we're not seeing the bookings coming in, but at the same time, we're not putting them too far down because we just don't know what's going to happen. Is this July 4th going to open or not? So I think we're lucky to have a large enough portfolio where we can take the risk of keeping prices down. And once we see the influx coming, we'll be very, very quick at hiking the prices right up. But we need to see movement of the market before we hike our prices. Otherwise, we risk just staying empty again.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's great. Then I'm going to stick with you for a moment. And it's my final question to you all. The future of our markets and your markets, where do you think travelers are going to gravitate to over the next 6 months between hotels and short-term rentals, and why? So now I'll stick with you. Final question, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we've already seen a movement. I mean, even just looking at the proportion of direct bookings, last year we were at around 37%. In April, we were up at 57%, and in May, we were up at over 60%. So almost 68% direct. I think part of that is because people have already started looking away from hotels, right? OTAs, major OTAs, Booking.com, Airbnb shut. So people are now starting to think, where will they go? And self-catering, of course, self-contained, more importantly, is very important, I think. Just reduces the risk of contact with other guests, with staff. and it means you have a private area to yourself. So I very much think that that's going to continue, and I think that will also help improve direct bookings for apartment operators going forward.
Great. That's really positive. Steve?
Sorry, I missed the question, Damien. What was the question?
The question was, in Brighton, do you think over the next 6 months that travellers, the ones you were talking about, who want to come down to the beach, have a beer or whatever, and just enjoy the sunshine, do you think they're going to gravitate more towards a hotel or a short-term rental property?
Well, I'd hope they look at short-term rental much more favourably. Excuse me. Obviously with us, we've got the natural self-isolation of a family unit in our properties. So if you are coming with your family, then you're in that property. You've got your own front door. You come and go as you please. You're not having to go via a reception desk. You've got keyless entry on all of our properties. All of our properties are self-check-in, so there's no personal interaction with us apart from over the phone or on text message or via communication platform. If the guest wants it, we're there. But of course, most people actually are quite happy to check in by themselves. And I imagine after lockdown, they really don't want to be shaking people's hands and showing them around a property. So
it's going to lead to an odd check-in, people doing this.
Isn't it just? Yeah. I think if I'm perfectly honest, most hotels, and I say most because some of them are pretty sharp on their technology, but most hotels in the traditional model with a reception desk and having to fill out forms and sign paperwork at the desk and hand over your passport, it is stuck in the dark ages as far as service accommodation is concerned. Most of the service accommodation and the events that we all go to, and we see, we're miles ahead in terms of technology. It's like hotels to me are like watching an old cruise liner trying to do a 3-point turn. They just move very, very slowly in terms of technology. I mean, and we're generally a pretty agile market, and we can move pretty quickly to change things and use technology to our advantage to flip over how we operate. And I've seen that time and time again. I'm amazed by the amount of clever, smart people in our business and the use of technology we do. It's an exciting place to be. The lockdown's been a pain, but it's an exciting place to be at the moment. I really do think they'll be gravitating towards serviced accommodation over hotels all day long. We are obviously biased, we would, but
yeah, of course. That's really positive. That's great. Pierre, I'm going to give the final word to you. Your thoughts on, for example, in London and Paris, short-term rentals versus hotels.
I mean, I cannot disagree with Steve or Naim if I'm being honest. And I think there's two things. The first one I'm thinking about is we obviously talked about things like lobby, for example, and common areas, which obviously short-term accommodation doesn't have. But one thing that we should mention as well is when you're in a hotel, if you want to go and have breakfast, you're going in a breakfast room. How is that going to work with the distancing when you have a hotel that has 500 rooms in London and 1,000 guests and breakfast room that can accommodate 100, 200 people? How do you do that? And the comfort of having breakfast at home, lunch, dinner, whatever that is, and having it for yourself, being able to have your own delivery rather than having to go to go out to dine and so on. I think this makes big differences. And obviously, I'm sure, as we've all seen over the last years, the vacation rentals increased a lot, and the knowledge around it increased a lot. And I think, in a sense, while it has been really painful, as Steve mentioned, and this lockdown has been very difficult, it has put into light that we are the best solution for people that want to actually have an experience where they just avoid being, mixing with people and respecting all the social distancing rules that we've been told about. Mm-hmm. So even for London and Paris, obviously, hotels, some of those big 5-star chains are obviously very popular and successful in London and Paris. But I think especially for people that come with kids and families that want to have more space and they just don't want to have to mix with people in the hotel, I think vacation rental is the perfect option, really.
Great. That's a lovely way to end up. Thanks, Pierre. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Real pleasure. Oh, we lost Naim. Not sure. But listen, thanks so much. Real pleasure. And I think got some great insights there. So chat to you all again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Steve. Take care.